All right, here we go. OverDrive off and running. TSN 1050 on the TSN app, your home smart speaker, and up on TSN 4. Bryan Hayes, Doug, Jeff O'Neill, Jamie Noodles McLennan on a Monday in Toronto. Certainly not a beautiful Monday in Toronto, but it's a Monday in Toronto.
Couple things. We needed intervention with Doogie regarding something that happened last week.
Yes, we do.
Yeah,
one of
that was
the
concerning.
dear Hazy Bee. We'll get to Doogie later. We'll get him on. Maybe he can sit beside you, Hayes. One of the dear Hazy Bees was Doogie, and he admitted it to us afterwards. You personally, Hayes, I don't know if he was crying on your shoulder or what happened in there, but we got to get to Doogie later because he admitted he was one of the dear Hazy Bees. I had no idea. They're emailed to me. It was him.
It was a shocking revelation. After,
it was.
And we won't reveal the exact one.
No, we are.
No, we will. I'm saying right now we won't. We will when Doogie joins us later, but let's just put it this way. It was harsh advice. It was very harsh, and the three of us, I think we're telling Doogie exactly what he needed to hear, right? Yeah. It's not always what you want to hear. You don't go to Dear
I think at the time we were like, the guy's a loser. The guy doesn't know. And it was Doogie.
It was bad, and it was Doogie. It's not a good start for the relationship because now Doogie.
Anyway, we'll get to Doogie later.
Yeah, we love Doogie. We love him.
We're going to have Dear Hazy Bee intervention style.
Okay.
It's like a follow-up on Dear Hazy Bee because we didn't know a guy that was on our show would pull a stunt like that.
Yeah.
The second item of concern, and I talked about it with my partsy, the Bears pick over the Chargers is the worst in the history of the show. Dude, yes.
It's not the worst. It's an awful pick. In retrospect, it's
an
awful pick.
What the hell were you thinking?
It was a horrible
that makes
pick.
My Detroit fiasco,
not
which
even
was
close.
Actually Luke.
No, not
which
even
was
close.
Actually Luke. It makes that look like child's play. I'm sorry. The Bears over the Chargers.
It was a bad pick. In retrospect, you look at it, the Chargers, you said it right after the pick, and you were right. The Chargers lose, and they choke to good teams. They destroy bad teams. The Bears are terrible. It was a layup on the scad. The Chargers had lost 2 weeks in a row against good teams. They had a bye a few weeks ago. It's at home. Like, everything's set up for what we saw last night. Eckler was great. Herbert was great. The Bears stink. It was an awful pick. Now, it's nowhere close to as awful as Ravens-Lions.
No,
and I would argue, because I did say on Friday, how dare you bet against Joe Burrow coming off a bye? I specifically said that. I said Bengals money line was the play of the century. So as much as my pick was not a great pick, betting against Joe Cool, your boy, when Brock Purdy stinks all of a sudden, and the Niners have lost now 3 in a row, Bengals off a bye getting points, Joe Burrow healthy, crazy to bet against that. Crazy.
And I don't know how the Bengals are going to do it again, but it wouldn't shock me if they ripped off 8 in a row.
Me neither.
And the final item is, I got another one this morning. Stop sending me the Beetlejuice pick and asking if it's me. It's not me.
So I should send this to
dummy
Joe from the
here.
bridge.
This dummy here, Noodles, he sent me a pic and said, we were chirping back and forth, and he just texted and said, "Be quiet, Beetlejuice." And he sends the pic. And I actually enlarged the pic, and I'm like, that face actually looks like mine. But I'm tired of answering to people when they're like, "Oh, dog, I didn't know you were Beetlejuice at the game." It's like New Orleans.
It was in Indianapolis.
Yes.
There was a lot of concern, public concern, that you were at the game in Indianapolis and you wouldn't make it back in time for the show today. And I was assuring people, I said, Beetle will be here. He will make it. Beetlejuice, if we say his name 3 times, he'll be on the show at 4 o'clock. And I just sent the picture to Joe from the bridge. We will reveal it to the world. It's coming up on TSN 4. Repeat after me. Beetlejuice. 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 And there he is. He made it to the show. So it's all good, man. You transported right from Lucas Oil Stadium in Indianapolis back to your couch right after the game. That is you, man. That's Beetlejuice. And the woman beside him looks just disgusted. Like they must be big Colts fans, and they're like, this is going south quick.
Yeah.
And the Saints did end up winning yesterday. But how was the game, man? You were there. Do you like Indianapolis?
Dude, that pick is horrifying. That's the one-time deal. You put that up there, thank you very much.
That's the end of it? Okay.
But if you put it up on the account, just zoom that thing in. Because it looks, that face, look at that
That's you, man.
face.
That's your eyes. That's your neckline, your chin line, your...
That's my whole
jowls?
disposition. That's everything.
Yeah,
that is my face as Beetlejuice.
There's a trail of annoyance coming out of that guy. He's just not happy. He's miserable, and he's Beetlejuice, and I love it. I'm always shocked by people that go to sporting events dressed up in Halloween gear, and I saw it yesterday. I saw some athletes. Who was it? I got to find out who it was. I want to say it was maybe it was Keenan Allen, actually, who had a mask on and was conducting his post-game scrum, but giving serious answers.
With a mask on?
Yeah, like he had a Halloween, Freddy Krueger mask on, and he's like, yeah, that was a good start tonight. We knew we had. Dude, you can't be serious when you're wearing a Halloween mask.
No.
You have to continue to follow through with the bit. You can't tell me that you had a great game plan, a great week of practice, and now we reset. You can't give us sports cliches if you're dressed up in a Halloween mask, right? You can't
Myers.
do it. Yeah, you can't do
Michael Myers. Yeah,
can't
ridiculous.
do it. So anyway, it's going to be a good one today because we got Struddy coming up. You would have seen Struddy all weekend, Noodles. You were out there at the Heritage Classic last night. It looked balmy out there in Edmonton. It looked
it's cold.
It looked freezing.
But it didn't
so
look
cold.
anything like the first one where it was 20 below.
The first one was close to minus 40, was it not?
Yes.
North of minus 30.
What
I remember
was yesterday?
Cold.
They said it was minus 2 to minus 12 after the sun went down, but I'm not lying. I have gone so soft.
You're Ontario boy. You're an Ontario kid.
I've got the Ontario blood in me now. I was sitting in the stands at first. I had the option to go sit in a box and, kind of work it and all of that, and had a few different groups of friends there, right? So at first I kind of I was sitting in the Flames family section. I sat right behind Nazem Kadri's parents and family. And it was cold. And I kept thinking to myself, okay, I wore my TSN heavy coat.
Oh yeah, I know what you mean.
There were people that wore leg warmers, outdoor snow pants and stuff like that. And I sat with a former Flames player named Curtis Glencross, and he had he's a hunter, so he had his winter hunter stuff on, and he was nice and toasty, and I was freezing my ass off. So then the second period, I went into a box, and I was like, I'm done with this.
See you later.
I'm too soft. That's what it was. But it was a good showing, guys. Really good showing.
It was. Listen, it looked incredible. It really did. It looked amazing with the crowd. I thought the build-up was really well done.
Visuals,
the production,
80% of importance.
Exactly. Right? And it didn't appear as if the ice was choppy. It looked and felt like a real game, which I give full credit to the NHL for that. And that's why you need the weather, right? You need it to be at a certain level so that you can keep the ice, at certain levels of excellence, I guess is the way to describe it in terms of NHL status. But those games are always strange. It's tough to really break down, how well people are playing, how great the effort is because of sight lines, because of the ice, because of the buildup. You're playing outside, maybe different gear on or whatever. But, Edmonton got the win. I think Edmonton clearly deserved the win last night, and they can breathe a little bit easier. McDavid returned. That's a significant sign. And I guess, as we said, building up to that, someone was going to continue to be rattled, and it happens to be the Calgary Flames.
I'll tell you
I didn't think they played very well.
No, they played awful. Based on what I saw, they were terrible last night.
They're in big-time trouble. And it's not – I'm not just making an assessment from watching yesterday, but the bottom line is, in a salary cap era, when you pick 5 to 7 guys who you're going to allot big-time money – and you have what I call cap separation, which is you pay a guy $10 million and he plays like he's worth $3 million, you're in big time trouble. If you pay a third line left winger $4 million and he plays like he's $2.5 million, it's not that big of a deal. You can get by on that. But when you're paying high-end guys top-end dollar and they're just another guy out there, and there's multiple of them, I don't even need to name names, and there's a bunch of them. It's not two. It's not two guys. You're in big-time trouble. It was all the same player out there, giving the puck up, soft little saucer passes. They need to figure that nonsense out.
Yeah, they're in trouble.
They're in big time trouble.
They're in big trouble.
I thought their goalie was good, and the only reason it wasn't
the only thing
8-2.
that was good was the goalie, Jamie.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Like, they miss Anderson, but outside of that, like, honest to God, and you can name names like Kadri, that was his first goal this season. So, he needs more. Huberdeau, how many times was his name? I mean, I didn't watch a broadcast, right?
Jamie, I thought he was a healthy scratch. I couldn't find him in the first period and a half. And it took for the 5-on-3s where he gave it away a bunch of times for me to say, man, I don't know what it is.
It's a shocking fall from grace. Like, if you look up his stats, he had 115 points 2 years ago. I'm serious, and I look it up because you can confirm that. Yeah. It actually happened. Where if you just showed up,
we're at a point where we got to stop saying that.
No,
because it seems like 10 years ago.
It's not even close. What I find borderline fascinating watching him play is how easy he is to check, and how often he skates into checks and then just gives up. Like, that's what I witnessed multiple times at the blue line last night. He'd skate into a check and then turn up ice. I'm like, where do you think you're going? Like, Huska was barely playing him last night. Huska, and at 5-on-5, they create nothing, literally nothing. It is terrible how bad it is in Calgary.
I'm trying
right now.
to dig into, like, what could be going on. And it's like you had your 1 year where you didn't want to leave Florida and you were probably all pissy and sour, and your play reflected it. But are you still pissy that you're in Calgary? Why the hell did you sign that contract then? Why'd you sign it? You didn't have to.
It's a massive deal. It's a massive contract like that.
It's a massive deal, and I'll say it again. If you're paying top-end dollar to guys like that, and there's that cap separation when they're playing like a $2 million player, you're screwed, and you have zero chance to win.
Yeah.
If Auston Matthews played like he's worth $2 million, can you imagine the hell that guy would be living in this market?
Oh,
hell.
And it would be deserved. And I'm sure they're saying that at Calgary. I mean, I can't imagine they're talking about anything but Huberdeau and Kadri. I think Lindholm has been incredibly quiet.
He's another guy.
Yeah,
I didn't want to name names, but you named them.
Those are the big guys.
You're a 40-goal scorer.
Those are the big
points.
guys. Yeah, those are the big guys.
But I name names only because we're just being honest. Like, we're not being disrespectful. You're just saying, well, we watched a game yesterday, and you're trying to pull out and go, okay, what are you seeing? What are you not? Like, Lindholm's playing for a contract right now.
Yeah,
Huberdeau's got his deal.
There's the cap separation again, Jamie. He's probably telling Craig Conroy he wants $10 million a year or something close to that, and he's playing like a $1.8 million player.
Well, I mean, it's still early in the season, and Conroy just got there, Huska just got there, right?
Dude, I get it, but
nothing's going to change. But, like, for me as an outsider, and I don't know if the ownership would ever accept this, but, like, if I'm an owner of that team, and I'm looking at this, I'm terrified of what's going to happen here with the future of Huberdeau. What is he, 8 games into an 8-year deal? Like, it just kicked in now. It's just kicking in. He's 30 years old. He looks like half the player he was, if that. Kadri's into year 2 of a 7-year deal at big money. I don't know how far off I would be from saying, when's the new rink going to be open? That's our plan. When that opens, we have to be a good team. So I don't even care what happens the rest of the way. For the Saddle Dome, I don't care for the worst team in the league. Do what San Jose did. You might have to. Just find a way to dump pieces out, change it up. But when that rink opens, we need to be rocking. And we need a young core that's ready to perform. And that's probably 3-4 years away, 5 years
if you're
away.
going to scorch the earth, what are you going to do with
well, that's
the
I don't know.
Mentioned?
I don't know what you can do. And it probably is too premature for that conversation. It's still October.
Yeah, we're still in October, but it did from what you've seen and
it's
what
a mess
they've laid out there. It hasn't been very good. That's the bottom line.
And Noodles, we've all 3 of us have been around the game our whole lives. If you think about the likelihood of that operation turning around and becoming elite, what percentage of a Jerry percentage would you give it?
Elite?
Here's the thing.
0%.
Exactly.
Elite.
So then what are we talking about here? Why
can they get back in playoff contention, Noodles? Like, that's what they're asking in Calgary.
Then I'm on a Jerry's percentage. I'm high on that just based on if their players play up to their potential. But we're 8 games in. not seeing outside of Markstrom, who I think has actually had a really nice start for them, but hasn't gotten the results. I don't know if there's been a consistent player there where you're like, that guy night in and night out has been outstanding. No. And, that's where, you live and die by the sword. You mentioned salary cap constraints. Separation. Okay, but when you're paying a lot of guys a lot of money, the expectation should be that, hey, we need more out of you. But those guys need to look in the mirror and say, we need more out of ourselves. Like, that's the thing. And,
it's on the players. 100%. It's on the players.
It's not Ryan Huska. And here's the other thing, too. The narrative is it was all Daryl's fault. Well, now all of a sudden, Daryl's not there.
They were hoping that was the truth. They were. That's the thing. That's been completely thrown out the window. You can't even reference
biggest
Sutter
indictment
anymore,
on those guys, period, Hayes, is the
right.
coach. That, we didn't like it. We didn't have fun. Okay, you're having a bunch of fun now, and you're still a bunch of duds out there.
Yeah,
so figure out what you want to do. You can make your lives – you can go to work. And I just don't know, Jamie, if there's enough talent there. The chemistry, there's something off there. They're going to have to if they're going to get back in playoff contention, they're going to have to 2-1 it and 3-1 it to death, because I don't know if they can start putting pucks in net at a consistent basis.
Well, you're right. Like, there's – they didn't have much change from last year, but Tyler Toffoli's player of the week right now.
Right, he can score goals, man. That's it. You can tell they don't create, Noodles.
Now, the thing, too, is Toffoli, you have to look ahead. Like, at some point you were thinking maybe the legs were, 30-plus, going to be legs come off, that type. But he settled into New Jersey, and I always butcher the guy's name, but they got Sharon Povich or, and he hasn't settled in Calgary yet. So, ultimately, they just need more from their top players. There's just, it's easy to start picking apart, the Dryden Hunts and, guys like that farther down the lineup and go, you need more from them.
No, it's Huberdeau, Kadri, Lindholm. Like that. That's what it ultimately is.
Well,
and then on the back
guys
line,
like Mangiapane.
Sure.
He's not anywhere. He was a 30-goal scorer.
But he's a hell of a player. He's a hell of a player, but he's got to, I think they just need more from everyone. Like, it's, again, 8 games in, but then you start to go, I mean, how many times have we been saying this? Well, it's 2 games, it's 4 games, now it's 8. Like, you've
played 10% of your season already, and Vegas still doesn't lose. And it's not that you're chasing Vegas, but you're there. The rest of the league is going to get theirs, and you got a team in town tomorrow night. Kings are in town. They're a good team. Edmonton, if McDavid's back healthy, they got a win last night. I think you expect Edmonton to come alive and start chasing again. So it's a tough scene out there. And again, with the Kings in town tomorrow, it's interesting that Keefe announced, I think he should, that Joseph Woll's going tomorrow night. And I'm feeling for Ilya Samsonov, like, I wish someone would pull him aside and just say, man, like, he's so down on himself. Like, publicly, he's just wearing it. And yes, that first O'Reilly goal was not a good goal. They lost in overtime. It was a good trip. I thought he played okay. The second O'Reilly goal, that's a great setup by Forsberg, a great tip by O'Reilly. And then Yossi comes right down Broadway. Klingberg could have helped him. Klingberg got the hell out of the way. He probably could have stepped up and checked him there. You go watch the tape. I couldn't believe it. Klingberg's like, nope, go ahead. Take that all you want. And Yossi snipes.
At one point, I thought Klingberg's back was
He stopped. He's like, I'm not going in there. Like, he stepped away from the lane. It was actually it was a horrible defensive play. Let's call it what it was. But he's so forthright with how down he is on
Jack Campbell
game.
was the same way. And it's such a weird vibe, because although you're a team and you want to take care of each other and support one another, it's like, it's such a grind when you hear guys saying, I'm just garbage right now. Like, somebody's got to talk to the guy and just make him. I don't know how you handle that, Jamie. You would know better than me, but it's like, you're putting, like, when you say that type of stuff, I'm people think I'm good, I'm not good, I'm dog bleep right now. You're thinking, okay, this guy's going in the net for us in an NHL game tonight. So where could his headspace properly be? I mean, you have to be respectful for everybody's mindset of where they're at, but it's like, if you're just kind of goofing around, maybe save the comments. I don't know. It's a touchy, sensitive subject, but there's also a part of it where it's like, it's big league stuff, and you got to be ready to go when you're called upon. I don't know. It's a real fine line.
Well, it's a slippery slope, too, because we always applaud people who are honest. But in certain positions, sometimes especially a goaltender, like I love Connor Hellebuck and the way he conducts business. Like Connor Hellebuck, he can allow 7 goals and he'd be like, I feel great. I'm fine. No problem. Like whether he's faking it to make it or not, he doesn't exude. He doesn't let anybody know anything. He doesn't allow whereas, you respect Samsonov's honesty, but you're right. As a player, which I can't speak to, but if I'm sitting there going, I feel like garbage, I look like garbage, I have been garbage, and the guys on the bench are looking back going, I listened to that guy's media yesterday and he feels like garbage. Like, it gets into your head a little bit and it kind of permeates through. And
well, Noodles, as a teammate, as a forward, I'm thinking, I don't want him in the net until he says he doesn't feel like garbage.
It's true. Yeah,
Pretty simple.
It is. There's certain positions where you kind of have to fake it to make it. And goaltenders are one of them. It's not that anyone would dispute why he's feeling the way he's feeling, right? He had a kind of tough end of the season last year into the playoffs. He goes through arbitration, didn't have a great camp, hasn't had a great start to the year. But, it's like closers in baseball. You give up a grand slam walk-off home run, you got to show up the next day with a smile on saying, give me the ball. I'm going back in tonight. And it's a part of that business. And, they need him. They're going to need him because if you're Joseph Woll, like we've talked about it, he's been a great story and he's played exceptionally well. And it's the right call to play him tomorrow night. He's been the better goalie. He's been red hot. The Kings are a good team. You're coming off a long trip. Who knows what the vibe's going to be like tomorrow night? It's an 8 p.m. start. Put him in. Let him see if he can carry the mail for you here for a while. But at some point, it's going to slip for him, right? At some point, Woll is going to have a rookie moment or just an NHL goaltender moment where he runs into a week where he doesn't have it himself. And at that point, it's going to be on Samsonov to carry the load. And, again, I didn't think he played poorly the other night. The O'Reilly goal he wants back. But he didn't get shelled and pulled again. No. After Tampa, that's one thing. Fine, you got pulled. I'm sure every goalie hates that, and, you want to redeem yourself. And technically, that didn't happen the other night. But he wasn't the reason they lost in overtime.
Also, the other big picture element to it, Hayes, is after what happened last year, he's coming into this season not as a total Hellebuck situation where he is the number one, but he's like, it's my net, and this kid is going to go in from time to time and give me a break. That's probably his mental approach. Mm-hmm. I mean, I think that would be a fair assessment of what he thought going into the year. That's
what he wanted to happen for sure.
Well, that's what happened last year. Mm-hmm. So he kind of took the net, and it was his net. And when that starts unfolding in front of your own eyes, where a guy, the guy's not stupid. He can kind of, you seeing the coach skate up to the other goalie and tap his pads, crack a joke. That must incense you.
It's a competition, man. Like he knows what's up. He knows what's going on. He knows what you can only play one guy, right? It's not like he can get bumped down to the second line. If Woll's playing, he's not. It's an incredibly unique position.
And he came from a tandem situation in Washington. Mm-hmm. Like that was, it was him and Vanacek. Like they were there. Like it was. So ultimately, he's got to fight for the net. And he knows he needs to be better in certain situations. But you're right. I didn't think he was the reason why they lost in overtime. I thought it was Game 5 of a road trip, long road trip. They didn't have their A stuff. Nashville is allowed to play well at home too. Like it just.
I didn't think they got outplayed. Like They didn't get smoked or anything. It was a good game. They had a chance. They had. I thought they were fine. And they go 3-1-1 on that trip. That's a successful trip. It's a long roadie early in the season. Leafs back in action against the Kings tomorrow. Todd McLellan, the Kings head coach, will join us in a couple of hours. We got a lot to get into today. Luke Wilson will be in. We'll get his take on the Monday Nighter tonight. We'll get his take on what we saw yesterday in the NFL. We saw a lot of different things pop up. The Raptors are back in action tonight. Patrick Beverley and Nick Nurse got the last laugh over the weekend. We'll get into that. And, again, we've got Jason Strudwick coming up. Struddy was in the house last night. He was doing damage all weekend. We'll get his take on what he's seeing out in Western Canada, his take on the Leafs, and whatever else happens to come up. Overdrive continues. TSN 1050 and on TSN 4. Overdrive continues, brought to you by FanDuel, bringing you everything from the opening line of the final score. I'm seeing that Gabby Marino's doing his pregame media, and people are asking him about the Blue Jay trade, which I'm sure that's what the Diamondbacks want him talking about before Game 3 of the World Series. But
I hate it, dude. I hate it. Like, it's like.
You see that home run he hit the other night? Like, I'm watching him round the bases. I'm like, it's crazy how
Who was
good
that
he's
catcher
been.
in San Francisco that was a stud?
Buster Posey. Yes.
He was dynamite for what, 10, 15 years?
Yeah.
They just gave away Buster Posey to the Arizona Diamondbacks.
Yeah, I mean, Posey's a borderline Hall of Famer. We'll see if Moreno gets to that point, but he's playing at a level. Listen, he was their number one prospect, right? Like, I there's a part of me that feels for Dalton Varsho because he's just getting hit with shrapnel. He didn't make the trade, right? He didn't demand Gabby Moreno in a deal that also happened to feature Gurriel Jr., who's been performing pretty well.
Hazy, what bugs me about it is Alejandro Kirk seems like this experiment where this short little stout guy, and it's like, how sustainable is that for performance? Honestly, I wonder about it. He didn't even hit that well.
He was horrible this year at the plate.
Yes.
Horrible. 2 years ago, he was an all-star, and he performed incredibly well.
Okay,
he was
but
great
how
at the plate.
sustainable is that in professional sports in 2023?
It's not.
No,
I don't know.
There's no way he's better than Moreno.
That's what I thought of
obviously.
when I saw Moreno rounding the bases, is Alejandro Kirk rounding the bases and how that looks and what he's up to. And yes, he's got a Gold Glove or up for it or
He's
whatever.
up for it, yeah.
He's a good catcher. He's a good catcher.
Yep.
That's what he is. He frames balls. He gets in front of them. He's actually a good catcher.
Yep.
I think it's a fireable offense.
But
honestly, you screw up like that. If I was an owner, I would be so pissed.
Well,
every game watching, I would be more pissed.
It is tough to watch. It
is, man.
It is. I mean, Moreno's hit 4 home runs.
Yeah,
Four
it's
home
like
runs.
drafting a defenseman and you think you're getting Scott Niedermayer, and it ends up being.
Don't say it. Say Bryan Hayes.
Bryan Hayes.
There you go. All right. I never played a Spengler Cup. I could have. I got
going to say
for
end
the
up
Spengler
getting
Cup.
Jason Strudwick?
No, he would not have said that.
I would have never
He would
said
not
that.
have said that. Here is Jason Strudwick. Actually, you put it on a tee for me. What's up, Struddy?
I'm good. I think some people did think I was going to be as good as my cousin. I think long term I was more fun,
Yeah.
but short term, no Stanley Cups, 0.
But 2 great Kamloops Blazers, right? Like you guys,
Yeah.
Did he make a call for you to get on that team? How did that work out? How'd you end up in Kamloops?
I think my midget stats stood on their own, and then people started projecting. They started talking about silver medals at Spengler Cups. Like, there's
Do
a lot of
people
excitement
honestly go
around
up
the
to
draft
you?
table.
Do people
Yeah.
honestly go up to you and say, "Why was your cousin like Scott Niedermayer so good, and what happened to you?"
Yeah, my dad asks me all the time.
My dad.
Yeah. Well, hey, listen, man, you made it. You made it, Struddy. That's all that matters. You were there, and a Spengler Cup legend, like you said, single-handedly dragging them to a silver medal. And I'll tell you what. Go ahead.
I learned one new thing about Struddy. We've been best friends for how many years? I did not realize this gentleman on the line had 100 fights in the National Hockey League. That got brought up at dinner.
Wow. 100.
We were out with friends on Saturday night, and it got brought up. We were just chatting, and I kind of just leaned over. I was like, Struddy, how many fights did you have? He said 100, like 100 in the show.
Did you know you were creeping up on 100 and you made sure you got there, Struddy, or did you find that out in retrospect?
No, you know what? Honestly, I just did it because I had to do it. It wasn't like I was trying to get to 100. And then I didn't know I had 100 till remember, I think it was called Hockey Warriors. A movie came out, and I was invited. There was premieres all over the place. I was invited to Edmonton to go, and the guy introduced me. He's like, "And welcome, Jason Strudwick, 100 NHL fights." I'm like, "What?" And my dad was like, "You had 100 fights?" I'm like, "I guess so. I didn't know." 99 ties and 1 loss. Not too shabby.
Pretty good. Pretty good. The gloves fell off, man. That's all right. 200 gloves hit the ice. That's always going to work for you. So good vibes out there. I mean, how would you compare and contrast Edmonton this morning to Calgary this morning?
Oh, I feel for Calgary. I think that there's a lot going on there. You watch that team play. Oh man, I've watched them a few times, and they just seem listless. Right? They don't seem to have any get up and go. And that's kind of how the Oilers had been, prior to the game, the outdoor game. And I thought the Oilers came out to use the words, I think it was Leon Draisaitl, we had pace to our game, and they were skating and playing. So I mean, I would not say at all that the Oilers are, that everything is behind them and they're good to go. Again, to use Leon, said, he goes, it could be the starting point of something good. But I think luckily for the Oilers, they had a good game. His family and friends in town can feel good about it. Day off was today. They'll have a couple of good practices Tuesday, Wednesday. That allows the guys like Ekholm that's kind of had a tough start to the season with some injury issues he had, and McDavid, a couple of days of practice. And then you get Dallas, a good team on Thursday, and then Nashville for an afternoon or Saturday. So I think that this is like, okay, let's get down to business. And, we rested up today. We'll get it going tomorrow and then Wednesday. But they still have a lot of work to do. This is not at all a finished product that we may have seen towards the end of the stretch drive last year.
Struddy, I think it was important, and I don't know if a lot of people viewed it as such. He's just Connor McDavid, and he's the best player in the world. But if I'm the team, I'm like, this guy's not playing whatsoever. But I thought it was pretty cool that he understood the importance, not just of the outdoor game, because he doesn't care about the league or the television ratings. He was like, I got to play in this game, and we got to get a win here because we don't want to feel like Calgary come Monday morning. And he made sure he got healthy, and he played. He probably wasn't 100%. And I just think that could be a turning point, an early one for the Oilers for this season. Like, if they lose that one, God knows what their mindset is, but he made sure he was a part of it. He was in the lineup. They got the win, and it wouldn't shock me at all if they took off from there.
There's no doubt about O-Dog. I think it's part of an evolution as a leader. And not to suggest he wouldn't have done this 5 years ago, but understanding your role, sometimes you're not 100%, but the excitement that having you on the line or in the lineup and on the ice makes, and he is a huge impact in that dressing room. Doesn't talk a lot, like maybe some other guys like Evander Kane may do, but having your captain there is a big, big deal. And there's 55,000 people there. They want to see Connor McDavid play, and everyone. He's kind of like the guy that's going to help lead them to where they need to go. So I was pretty sure he was going to play. Those types of injuries are kind of at times day to day or week to week. I felt pretty comfortable he's going to be there, but now he gets those couple of days, kind of get his legs underneath him, get ready for the next game on Thursday. But for this team, like it's. What I liked about the last game, like yesterday, was low event defensively. And I think that's something they have to strive for. People say, well, look at their numbers for and against and shots and all that. I get it. But it's great to have that. But when you have a bad situation where a single play really blows up in your face too often, I think that becomes a bit of a problem. So they low event defensively yesterday. I think that's a really step in the right direction for what they need.
Struddy, you mentioned, looking at Calgary and they looked a little bit listless. I watched that game yesterday, and I know Draisaitl and McDavid are always the story, but for me, Evander Kane was such a catalyst because Calgary didn't have an answer for him. And just when he plays like that, he is kind of a unicorn because, he's a top-line player who plays with that bite and isn't shy to drop the gloves. And, to me, I thought he was one of the most impactful guys on the ice.
First of all, I want to tell you, my sources told me, because I wasn't sitting with you, that you ate 2 buckets of popcorn during the game yesterday. Is that true? Not smalls, not mediums, buckets of popcorn. Is that true? That's what you ate during the game?
I was freezing my ass off so much. There's not a chance. I was wearing Curtis Glencroft's gloves. I couldn't eat my popcorn with it because my hands were so frozen. So, no, I barely ate a Popeye's chicken burger or anything. I was so rattled how cold it was. So, no, I didn't eat too.
Struddy? Did you have 30 Coors Lights during the game?
No, I was actually working and volunteering for my son's hockey team. So I was selling merchandise. So I was selling all these different T-shirts, and people were buying anything. Like they would have bought your Miami Vice suit jacket you had on, in September. They would have bought that. They were so desperate for anything connected to hockey. It was crazy.
So you're telling me you told your kid you're going to the game, the outdoor heritage game, and you're selling trinkets for him and his team?
That's what I did. A couple hugs on the side for the big tips to help the kids. Yeah. Then I'd go and watch the game in the periods and come back and sell at intermission again. It was a busy day.
That is insane.
He set up a kissing booth and they lost money.
I'm going to say, did you get a permit for that, Struddy? They should arrest you. You can't just walk around bothering people. What were you doing out there?
Did you have to ask Daryl Cates for permission or what?
For anything for the kids. It was like, I was selling my old paraphernalia off, right? My Spangler Cup T-shirt, Memorial Cup stuff. My draft suit was all up for grabs. Raised a lot of money. Kids played for free this year.
How much would that Spangler Cup silver medal go for at a game like that last night?
I didn't want to know. People were drinking. We were probably talking in the 10s, maybe the 20s.
Okay. Okay. I like it. I mean, I'd put that up for auction. I'd throw in a decent price on that. I'd love to see the Spangler Cup.
I love it. I love it. But to answer your question about Evander Kane, like he is at his best when he's emotionally involved in the game and connected. And the moment where he was like, what is anyone going to do out here to me after hitting, some Flames players? And that's when he's at his best, because you're like, I've been on the other side of that where someone's challenged the whole team. You're like, no, he's probably right. He could probably beat us all up. And that's a bad feeling to be in, right? And so he didn't have that to start the year. That first period a couple of games ago where he fought Dylan, I think, they fought the next game he fought again. And he's connected. And then he drags other guys into the fight because you get caught up in that emotion and you get going. So he's a huge part. And I'm not going to say he's the reason they seem to be showing life, but he's definitely part of the solution of getting that group kind of out of this, similar to the Flames, kind of the listless start to the year. He's one of the reasons. Now you got to get, I think, Zach Hyman, who was +4, and it was better yesterday. I think Nugent Hopkins needs to keep going in that direction. Connor Brown still finding his way back from injury. McLeod, Holloway, all those skating fast, maybe not creating a ton offensively. So he is part of that solution, as they all are, but you need someone to do it first. So I think that 91 did it for the Oilers.
With Jason Strudwick. So you move east of Alberta, and you eventually will get to Winnipeg, where Blake Wheeler's making his return tonight. And I think he deserves like a massive salute from the fans. He was a day one guy. He was the captain there for a long time, but it just felt like the way he went out, it's like a lot of the fan base circled him as that was the issue against Vegas, or that was the issue down the stretch.
I don't know if the fans, Hazy, have that type of inside info.
No, I'm not saying they do. I'm not even saying that that's correct. That seems to be like my read on the situation from afar is that, with what Rick Bowness said at the end of that series against Vegas, and then he gets bought out. It was like, Wheeler's got to go. They ripped the captaincy off him a year ago. I just feel like it could be a strange return tonight, Struddy. I don't know what you're anticipating.
I hope for him it's a positive one.
Yeah.
Like any relationship, you're anywhere for 10 years or wherever, or whatever, you're going to be 15 or whatever it is. There's good and bad times, right? It's just like in a relationship, anything, there's good and bad times. But he was a loyal, hardworking Jet for a long time, and I guess by extension Atlanta. He was there a long time, and I think you got to kind of give him the benefit of the doubt. I hope that it's a warm reception for him. He wasn't the one that was, I think he was bought out, if I remember correctly. He wasn't the one who asked to get bought out. Like, this is what happened. So I think that you got to take the good and bad in any relationship. But for the most part, he was a good, hardworking Jets team that I still believe underachieved with some of those teams they had. But he wasn't the only guy on the team. It wasn't like it was tennis. So I hope he gets a nice reception, and I think he does deserve that.
Well, Struddy, we'll leave it there. We should point out, JP looked this up on hockeyfights.com. They have you listed at 112 fights in the NHL.
Wow.
112. So you actually shortchanged, or you got shortchanged at that event. The red carpet out in Edmonton, hundreds, not enough. 112 fights.
JP, that might be. We might also challenge his math skills, right? Maybe.
Yes.
He's not quite actually take the socks off, add it up again. Maybe that count? Maybe that counts exhibition, because I was always busy. I love beating up 19-year-olds in exhibition.
That's probably what it was. They weren't counted as like official fights, but on hockeyfights.com, there's no morals or ethics on that site.
Some 5'9" skill guy from Europe, you would just pound the guy into the ground and puff your chest out.
Look at me, guys. I can fight. I can do it. I'll tell you a quick story. After I left Vancouver and went to Chicago, I was so nervous to play Vancouver. My first shift, I made a tape-to-tape pass to my old partner, Ed Jovanovski. Probably the only one he ever got from me in our time together. But I was so nervous. And the coach comes back and is like, "Are you done now?" I'm like, "Okay, I'm good." Then I started playing. So I can only imagine after that long in Winnipeg what it'd be like for Blake Wheeler.
Yes, it's very similar to your return to Vancouver. I think that's exactly what they're anticipating tonight in Winnipeg.
Trevor Linden, Jason Strudwick, Marcus Naslin, very similar.
That's right. That's right. All right, Struddy. Well, great catching up with you. We called you after a win. The Oilers got a win. That's how we operate on this show.
Classy guys. Have a good day, boys.
All right, there he is. Jason Strudwick from Edmonton. Out there doing charitable work at the Heritage Classic last night.
I would have said, no way. Like, I'll go buy some chocolate bars for your hockey team, and you guys do it. I'm not freezing.
A lot of support. It is cold. Man, I went to the outdoor game at BMO on, what was that, in 16? January 1st, 16? I think it was Matthews and Marner's rookie year. I'm pretty sure it was.
Against Detroit?
Yeah, against Detroit. And it wasn't horribly cold. It was actually, for January 1st, not bad. It was, -1, -2, got colder when the sun went down. But it's that you were outside for so long. We were outside for like 4 hours, and you're not moving. You're just sitting there. It's freezing.
Like Toronto's had one in Detroit. They've had Detroit back there at BMO. Where's the Montreal-Toronto one?
That should be happening.
Yes.
That should definitely be happening.
And I don't mind BMO, the venue, but isn't there, like, couldn't they make it somewhere more grand? I don't know if there's I don't know where you could have it, but figure something out really cool for Habs Leafs.
That should happen. I thought that was interesting that they brought Canadians alumni out to kind of pay homage to the original
that was
Heritage
cool.
Classic. Yeah, it was
like
kind of cool. Like before the game, they had 3 former Habs out there, and I was certainly not expecting that. I don't recall ever seeing that, where a team not playing is getting some sort of a salute, but that was the case, last night. And yeah, I'd like to see that too. I think Toronto-Montreal should happen at some point. You could probably do a Canadian-on-Canadian team every year, right? You can find a way to mix it up, or every couple of years, maybe every 3, 5, whatever it is. But Toronto-Montreal outdoors would be cool. Luke Wilson coming up in about 15 minutes, the Monday Nighter tonight. We'll get to that, and our best bets brought to you by FanDuel still to come. Todd McClellan, head coach of the Kings, just after 6:30. OverDrive continues. TSN 1050 and on the TSN app. All right, Luke Wilson coming up. He'll join us in studio in about 10 minutes. Monday Nighter tonight, Lions, Vegas. Josh McDaniels trying to get some justice for his boy Matt Patricia. I think he's going to go in there and really put a game plan together.
They're brutal.
Yeah, Vegas is not very good, and Detroit's a good team. It's your pick. It's a layup. Doogie making sure you guys are in a good headspace, which is great.
Dude, Doogie tried to give you a gift from God. We're going to give Doogie a gift and help him out in his social life, but he tried to hand you a gift.
Well, I screwed up last night. I mean, there's not much more I can say other than that. It was a horrible pick. The Bears, not a very good team.
I told Luke today, we were chatting, as we do. We have a session every Monday morning. It felt like a stunt, like you did it on purpose, and then you're going to bring in some secret guy to make picks or something.
No. Listen, I'm well above 500. I'm very comfortable with where I'm at. I went
stunt.
A stunt.
It did. It felt like a stunt.
Well, listen, you didn't say anything about my Panthers pick, which was a brilliant pick. I said Panthers money line. Forget taking the points. You guys were goofing on that. It was a great pick. I have a process. It will be steady, and over the course of an 18-week season, I'm going to be victorious. I have no doubt about that. You see Patrick Beverley after the game tweet out,
No dogs.
And basketball's not one of those. It's not a physical sport. There's nothing you can do and it's not like Pat Beverley came in here and put on a clinic. The guy had 2 points.
It is weird, though, just like Struddy said. He said it's weird when a guy can mouth off and say nobody can do anything, and he's right.
Yes. Well,
it's a weird vibe, dude.
Really weird vibe. And like Siakam, something's up with him early in the season. I don't know if it was the rumors of the offseason. I don't know if it's a new coaching staff, a new game plan. He's not even involved. Like he didn't play well on Saturday night, but I didn't even think he was getting any action. Like no plays are running through him. Nothing's going through him. He's not assertive whatsoever, which again speaks to what Patrick Beverley said. And OG Anunoby left the game the night before with muscle cramps and then didn't play the next night. Like I don't recall hearing muscle cramps keeping a guy out of a game the next night, in 2023 with all the sports science available to us.
Not when you watch a guy like Joe Burrow on a weekly basis.
Right. And those were the two guys he named, Siakam and OG Anunoby. Anunoby didn't play because he had muscle cramps the night before. And Siakam, what do you have, 11 points? He barely contributed anything, and they got smoked. So, last laugh, I guess, to Pat Bev, and until they prove otherwise, that he's going to keep mouthing off and keep tweeting and keep popping off on his podcast. And
that lingers, though, man, because trust me, guys go for lunch and they're like, man, are we ever going to have a dog?
Mm-hmm.
Like, are we going to have people chirping us every time they wheel through town? It sucks.
Yeah, it does.
It sucks. You're out of the loop. And we've been talking about them the same way for 2 or 3 years now. It's like, since they won the championship, they're just kind of out of the loop, and they got a bunch of guys there.
That's where they are. That's where they are. It's a bad start. Like, they threw away that game on Friday at Chicago. That's one of the worst executions down the. I don't recall seeing anything like that. The turnovers, the inbound mistakes, the fouling. It was horrible. It was Chicago wasn't any better. They didn't want to win either, but someone had to in the end, and it turned out to be the Bulls. And then, Philly came in and smacked them around. It's not a great start, but you got Portland in town tonight. Portland's 0-3, and they're turning things over. You got to get this one tonight. We'll tee it up later in the afternoon. Hour 2 coming up. OverDrive continues. TSN 1050 and on TSN 4.